we were made rather brutally aware of a feminist idea of gender justice when Larry Summers, president of Harvard University, spoke a truth concerning the relative statistical abilities of men and women in the sciences. Summers holds the distinction of being the only university president forced to resign for speaking the truth. And since it was a truth connected to the sexes, it was feminists who mobbed him and forced their colleagues to fall into line. Skipping over another example. It has been, how am I doing? Okay. It has been 20 years since the term political correctness entered the popular vocabulary in its contemporary multiculturalist guise. The brilliant journalist Mark Stein calls political correctness, quote, a refusal of reality, a refusal to call things by their real name, and hence the propagation of a lie. I'll end with a personal anecdote about political correctness. Mostly I write about material that I glean from other sources, from interviews, articles, the news, books, and so forth. 2 years ago, I had my own personal experience with political correctness, and it happened at my old alma mater, my graduate studies, McGill University. And what surprised me in the incident was the ease with which one or two ideologues could intimidate a whole committee of intelligent people. The wish not to offend, it told me, is now so deeply ingrained in our culture that most people are now their own human rights commissions. What happened to was, I was invited by the Women's Alumni Association of McGill to give a talk to the Alumni Association. And what they do is they get former graduates from McGill who are doing what they consider to be interesting things, or, you know, to speak about their experiences. And 99% of the time, I think perhaps I was the first one that ever wanted to introduce any kind of ideological stuff into, you know, yeah, I started my own little cosmetics business out of my house. You know, I was in 1974 and I was bored. I mean, you know, usually it's something that's very benign and very anodyne, and everybody, just, it's an enjoyable social evening. So when the committee called me, oh, she's a journalist. Yeah, you know, that would be nice. I mean, I don't think they, you know, they didn't have a clue. Yeah, okay. I mean, the person who brought up my name actually was someone who believes in what I do, but she wasn't letting on to the committee. She just said, oh, what about Barbara Kay? She's a, you know, she's a columnist and she's graduating. So I accepted. I said, well, they said, what would you like to talk about? And I said, well, I think I'd like to talk about feminism and its impact on society. Good, yeah, because it made everybody equal and it was so good. So they put out a lot of publicity, and they had asked me many months in advance, and I'd accepted. Anyways, about 4 days before the event was to take place, the publicity had gone out, and the committee had gotten 2 emails, that's all, 2 emails, one from a women's studies professor and one from some other feminist, saying, you can't have this woman speak here. She is anti-feminist, and she has no right to speak. You must disinvite her. The committee was just horrified that they had, you know, that there was any controversy at all. So the person who had initially invited me and who fought for said, this is, you can't disinvite someone, she's coming, and, you know, it's her right to talk about what she wants. Anyways, she called me and said, well, Barb, you know, we have a little problem here. The committee has met a few times. They're very nervous. I said, well, who exactly has complained? Well, we had a call from one person, and then we had an email from another person, and they seem to be very upset. I said, so basically 2 people have complained they don't like what I think, and you want to disinvite me. Well, they're very nervous, and they're afraid that there might be trouble, and it came out, yes, we want to disinvite you. But she didn't put it that way. She said she was actually hoping that I would say, oh, I don't want to
cause a problem.
Cause a problem, of course, I'll just not come. So I said, you know, I can't believe that 2 people complained and you are actually giving into this. Like, what are you afraid of? You know, well, I'm not afraid personally, you know, but the committee. I said, you know what? I said, you can disinvite me. I said, you can have your choice. I can come and speak to the 40 people, if I'm lucky, show up for this event. We'll have a pleasant evening, and I promise you, nobody will, you know, storm the tribune, you know, the podium. I said, or you can disinvite me, and I can write a column about it. And, you know, I'll be reaching a whole wider audience. And so she says, let me get back to much they came. Anyways, needless to say, I was not disinvited, but they were so nervous. I was shocked. I had to laugh. I walk in, there is security there. Security at the Women's Alumni Association? I just had to laugh, and I said to my, the person, I said, you're not serious. Are you expecting this kind? She said, well, I don't know. It's controversial. It's controversial. I said, I'm talking about feminism. I'm not talking about like, what? Iraq? I mean, Anyways, needless to say, there was no need for the security. There were about 40 people. Some of them were younger women. I was pleased to see. Everybody was extremely cordial and respectful. I gave a quite edgy talk. Afterwards, a few of the younger women came up and said, I've never heard some of the things you've said. I said, yeah, I guess not. That's the point. One of the points of my talk. It all went very well, but I was left with the impression of, this is how easy it is to cow people when you don't want, this is, I'm not Ann Coulter, for God's sake. So anyways, that was my own little brush, and it just was a revelation to me. The willingness to chill free speech in the interest of harmony and getting along is quite frightening. I don't envy the present university generation. I think many of them are choosing to just get through their time on campus by walking close to the wall and saying and writing what it is clear that their professors want to hear. That is an intellectual loss because such submission not only prevents the acquisition of the ability to think critically, it erodes the desire to. Others, alienated by the prevailing orthodoxies, feel marginalized and uncomfortable. They are learning, but they're learning defensively and often in isolation, and that is not good either. Universities are supposed to be, above all, a forum for the free exchange of ideas, but they are now, quote, islands of repression in a sea of relative freedom. That's John Furdy, a retired psychology professor who came up with the coinage Velvet Totalitarianism, which he feels is the reigning mood of our universities. The speech codes that have been instituted on all Canadian campuses during the last decade vary in severity, besides being, as indicated above, ambiguous. Nevertheless, they all go beyond the Canadian anti-hate laws, which are themselves questionable from a strict freedom of speech perspective. Many academics have reported that they feel more comfortable nowadays discussing controversial issues in society at large rather than in academia. That's sad, a very sad commentary on the state of affairs in universities, but I think I have spoken long enough. And I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that all of us would love to hear more and more examples. And one thing that I did want to say is that the opposite, this is something that I liberated from Small Dead Animals, the blog, if you guys ever read it. We have a few bloggers here. I hope everybody will have a chance to talk to each other. But that the opposite of diversity is university. And I think we all have personal examples that we'd love to talk to Barbara about. So right now we're going to have dinner, and we have lots of time to chat afterwards. So thanks again for the wonderful talk, and it was great meeting a lot of you guys here. And please hang out, and we're going to have dinner, and we'll chat afterwards as well.
Thank you.